So I've been doing the Blue Page for the last 4 years, and then I was a midnight ballerina before that, all while going through college. And here's some advice that I would give to people who are considering doing the Spicy Page or who are considering doing midnight ballerina work, or just going into the adult industry in general, because it is a lot of impact on your life, your family life, your social life, everything. And those are some things that I didn't anticipate going into it that I wish I would have thought about before. Some things that aren't obvious to most people, that aren't obvious to like the things that most people talk about. There's some other things that you don't think about before getting into it. The biggest thing that I didn't expect was how it would change my perspective on money. Because when I first started as a midnight ballerina, and I was working at a grocery store job, and then my first day as a midnight ballerina, I walked away with $700, and it changed my life. That kind of money, having it come so quickly, having a day where you go into work being like, I have zero money, and then walking away with like $1,000 or $2,000 at the end of the night is insane. And that amount of money kind of like, it warps your idea of how much things cost and what things are expensive to you. That's why a lot of girls go into the industry and then walk out, or like are in it and they're like getting designer bags, they're getting nice things, and just having this mentality that like if it's under $500 it does not matter, which to the average person, literally insane. And I can't even describe to you how much of a mindfuck that is, especially when you like if you're trying to get out and try to go to a normal job, like how much of a different mentality that is. And just like it's so weird. And even now, like I make a lot more money doing like the Blue Page now than I even did as a stripper, as a midnight ballerina. And it's like it changes your life in so many ways, but you have to remember that it's not forever, and you need to make sure that you're really careful and conscientious about your money so that when you walk out, that you don't lose it all, that you don't walk out being like, I have nothing to show for this money that I made. And like, because that is the worst possible option, is going into this industry and like making a bunch of money and then losing it all before you leave. Because this is supposed to be a stepping stone towards something else. Second thing that I did not consider going into this is that you will walk away with scars. Especially as a midnight ballerina, like you will walk away with scars. There are people who are weird, there are people who will grab you, there are people who will like assault you, and there is a lot of safety because like the managers are usually really good. They usually are trying to keep you safe. But there's only so much you can do while you're there. It's just a very unsafe position that you're putting yourself in, and there's a lot of shame that comes along with that, and a lot of long-term like ways that affects you. Like for example, in dancing, you see the worst in people, and that really can taint your idea of like what a good man is and who, if those even exist. A lot of girls that I knew who danced, they are lesbian now because they just have no faith in men. Another thing I'd say is that it affects your self-worth and your view of yourself so heavily. Most of the time, whenever people are giving you money based on what you look like, it can be really empowering, because it's hard to disbelieve that like if people are giving you money, it means that you're hot. Like that's just, it's hard to not believe that you're hot after that. But it also means that you kind of put all of your value on whether or not you look hot or you're desirable. And if that changes, it can be a real blow to your self-esteem, to your self-worth. And it's just very much fluid and very like built on a sandy foundation. And so it's important to remember that you have to develop other parts of yourself and like hold true to those parts of yourself that aren't involved in the industry, because those things are the things that matter the most in order to keep yourself sane. Another thing that I didn't expect was the schedule. It's really hard whenever especially if you work as a midnight ballerina, your hours are so different than the rest of your friends. You are usually waking up at like 3 p.m. you go to work from like 7 until 2 in the morning, and then you're up until like 6 in the morning, and then you go back to sleep, and then you wake up at 3, which is really hard if you have friends who are normal, to keep friends who are in a normal industry, because you have such a different schedule, and it's hard to keep up those friendships since you're on such a different schedule than they are, which is something I didn't expect, especially even doing what I do now, the Blue Page. I go live all the time, and those times are usually in the evening, which is when most of the people who I'm friends with are getting off of work. So it's really hard to keep up those friendships, and you have to put a lot more intentionality into that, and it's important to do so. Essentially, being in the industry, it can be really rewarding, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but there are a lot of downsides that come with it that are important to recognize before you decide to go into the industry. So just think about that before you decide.